Man, we back. Hanging out with my main man, BH, man. And got my super duper homie, Nicholas, man, kicking in from KC. What's up, man?
What's going on, guys? Happy to be on the show.
Hanging out with
Glad to
Frankie
have you back,
football,
man.
man. Yeah, man. Thank you for coming back and kicking it with us, man.
Anytime.
Good, man.
So,
Good.
so obviously over the past, I believe it's been 2 days, we've had a few changes. Some guys have been, how do I put it nicely, relieved of their duties, thanked for their time and sent on the greener pasture.
So they didn't have
Someone
Black Monday.
has been brought in.
Yeah, they didn't have Black Monday. They had a Black or Purple Tuesday or something like that.
Yeah, there we go. Purple Tuesday.
Yeah, something, man. They got going. Yeah, man. We got a new defensive coordinator.
You got
The infamous Dan Quinn from the old head coach of the Atlanta Falcons and famously known for being part of the architect of the Legion of Boom. I think that's what he's riding on right now.
That's right, man. He got old bodies on the wall. So Mike Nolan, let's start with Mike Nolan. Mike Nolan being relieved of his duties. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being totally unnecessary and 10 had to happen. How would y'all rate that?
Want me to go
run
first?
With that, Nick. Yeah, run with it, Nick.
Honestly, I'd say a 5. Mainly because I keep going back, and we discussed it earlier. A lot of it's on the players, not necessarily the scheme. I think Nolan's biggest issue was his communication skills, and especially communication skills under these circumstances. And it put him behind the 8 ball. So when you have high expectations, sometimes you got to make a change. Sometimes you got to revert back to stuff that some of your better players are more comfortable with. And we saw that with the hire of Quinn. He brings us back into a more consistent 4-3. And I think some of these guys are going to benefit. So 5, I wouldn't have flipped the table if he would have stayed, but I'm also not upset that he's gone. So
I think about it this way. I would say a solid 7 because Nolan's and the defensive line coach, Tom Sula, they weren't really teachers. They were the kind of guys that came in with their system and they just asked the players to do it. And whether they succeeded or failed, as we saw in the season, they just adjusted from there. They didn't really help the players to build upon themselves. And I think that that's something that you don't want on a team that already has a struggling defense. You want to build those players up, and Nolan nor Tom Sula really did that.
I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna go with a 6 because I'll say a 6 because I'm gonna go with you. What you're saying is that they didn't teach guys because guys didn't get better or guys weren't able to adapt to it. But I'm also going to go with the 7 because somebody had to be accountable for the second worst defense in Dallas Cowboys history. Somebody's head had to roll for it. We could have brought him back because you don't take players who a year before. I mean, you got to think about it. A year before, DeMarcus Lawrence and regardless of what we may think, Jalen Smith were both Pro Bowlers, right? We both thought Anthony Brown could play in this league. We both thought Xavier Woods was a guy who was going to take a tick up and go forward, and he totally regressed. So with all that being said, it was kind of like a 6. Lack of being able to teach and a lack of having the time needed to be able to implement this new defense. It was pure Dallas Cowboy arrogance. That's what I like to call it, to turn around and I'm going to implement a whole new defense over Zoom.
Yep.
I'm going to turn around and put a whole new scheme in place in 6 weeks. When every coaching staff in the NFL gets to start in April, if it's a new coaching staff, they do that for a reason. So,
and not only do you have a new defensive coordinator, but a lot of those coaches that he hired, they haven't worked together in years. So now you're expecting them for that to trickle down to them and to be able to help those position players. That's not easy. Like you said, over Zoom, that's not easy. And we saw guys, it start to click later in the season, but too little, too late. So it's yeah.
And but think about it, they never beat a team that had a more improved type defense or offense, they didn't beat a team with a winning record. They beat the teams that hey, they should have beat. They should have beaten Atlanta because Atlanta was known for giving up leads, and now he's our coordinator.
So
go ahead.
So I have to ask about this then. Do you put a lot of that fault, the worst defense in Dallas Cowboys history, do you think that goes totally on the coaches, or how much culpability do the players have in that?
I think it goes three ways. I think it goes to the coach, to the GM for putting him in that position, and then definitely in the players. Some of the players, they don't have the attitude to be a good defense. They play soft. The GM and the coaches have allowed them to get that way. So yeah, it's plenty to go around. It's not just one aspect of the team.
53 brands. 53 brands. That's the problem. Yeah. It was not one brand. It was not one mindset. It was not one team. So you're right, Nick. You're absolutely right. They had the ability to say, hey, I'm going to worry about my brand. And they weren't a hard-hitting, stop type, just tackling type football team. So it does go across the board. Yeah. But I think the biggest thing for me, I put more on the players. And I'm going to tell you why. We have for years blamed Rob Marinelli, Chris Richard, and everybody else for why this team couldn't go to the next level. We're too vanilla. We're too plain. We're too this, that, and the other. I want to ask you guys a question because you football guys, name me 3 guys on the defensive side for the Indianapolis Colts. Quick.
It's a great question.
Leonard, Buckner, Malik Hooker, but he's hurt. Rhodes, didn't Xavier Rhodes go to there, cornerback?
There you go. There's 3. You know what I'm saying? And you named a hurt guy. So there's not there's not a plethora of Pro Bowlers, All Pros, household names on that defense in Indianapolis. But they're hard hitting, disciplined, and they do their job. All the teams that are in the playoffs that played this weekend had defense of guys who were not household names. You can't name 3 guys off Tennessee. You can't name 3 guys off of Indianapolis, Buffalo. All these teams, all these teams that we saying, hey, we want to be in the playoffs, but man, we don't have guys who just do their job. And for years, we blamed Rob Marinelli. He's too vanilla. He's too simple. Everybody can figure us out. So then you come with a more complex scheme, and guess what? You got what you got here.
And if we want to blame something with Marinelli, it would be that he's maybe a little too arrogant as far as thinking he can coach some of these lower down prospects better than they actually were, to where they're not addressing the D tackle position, not addressing the safety position, deciding to say, hey, we can take this guy on offense instead of addressing defense. I think he did with what he could. I mean, he didn't have a lot to work with.
But
I think that's a good point, Nick. In this first year of this new regime, he does have to deal with a lot of rollover from Marinelli-ville. I like that. I try to stick with that term.
I like that.
Okay.
So yes, he does have some dusty pieces. I don't want to say one man's trash is another man's treasure, because at the end of the day they're pros. But the shine isn't on those pieces that he has to work with. He doesn't have a true 3-tech, like you said. It took 3/4 of a season to really find one of your safeties. So that's just something that the defense as a whole, the unit, does have to kind of go through some changes. They have to get caught up to the modern time. Most teams have that big immovable object of a 1-tech in the middle that they can keep on the field for two, maybe 3 downs, maybe 3. But can we really say that the Cowboys have had that? Some teams have that ball hawk of a safety, some teams, that they can rely on in the middle of the field. Can we really say that the Cowboys have had that? So yes, that's something that could only be changed with time. One offseason wasn't going to fix those philosophical issues from the last regime.
And if you look at some of the players that we have that are, you could say, like good, or players that you drafted high, they were drafted into a different scheme. They were drafted. So, for example, Hill, he was drafted to be a guy that's quick and can get up the field, not a guy that can take on a block and then react. Our linebackers aren't necessarily football players. They're athletes. They just go straight. They're not going to sit there, wait, read, and then figure out where the ball's going and then react. No, their head's going to be spinning. They're going to be going in the wrong direction. So by changing the scheme, it's highlighted their issues even more. So the fact that we're going back to Quinn, I think might help some of those guys look a little bit better. May not make us all world, but at least makes their job a little easier.
Okay, and that's a good segue. What do you guys think that Quinn brings over to the team?
I believe what he ends up bringing is with that 4-3 that he plays. I think you have some pieces already in place. Let's just go. Right now, coming in day one, he's got 2 defensive ends that I know can play every down.
Yes.
Okay. I've got 3 technique that's a rotational guy. My other one is coming off a knee injury, so I don't know what he's going to be. I don't have a one tech. I have one rote. I don't have a one technique at all. Not under contract.
Not a true one. No,
I don't have a true one under contract. I think he'll be able to get us through next year with the one guy nobody wants on this team, so that you can cut him. That you can cut him after you draft his replacement this year in the draft. I think you go draft his replacement this year, and we're all talking about double dipping in corner. I'm definitely trying to double dip at linebacker. I am definitely trying to double dip at linebacker because I'm going to lose one to just retirement. I think Sean Lee isn't coming back. I don't think physically he can come back. But I can't trust Leighton Vander Esch to stay healthy.
You might be losing all 3 actually over the next 2 years if you think about it, because you're probably not picking up Leighton Vander Esch's 5th-year option.
I think you pick up Leighton Vander Esch's 5th-year option if you can get a one technique and get better play from your 3, and you'll be able to see the Leighton Vander Esch you had in 2018. I think you get him back. I think the guy that you're trying to replace day one right now, you're trying to replace Jalen Smith.
For sure.
You're trying to find Jalen Smith's replacement this year.
So let me ask you this. Dan Quinn did a lot of this stuff in Seattle where it would be a 3-4 scheme, but he would bring his Sam down to the line and basically act as another defensive end. That's something that I think that Jalen Smith excels in. He likes to rush the passer. Do you think that putting him in those type of situations where you just put him at the line and standing up, do you think that that's a good way to help him transition into that next stage of his career?
That's what he did well in 2018, 2017, 2018. That's what he did well. You remember, the San Francisco game, him being able to just get a full head of steam and bang a guard. That he can do that if he can come clean. But if he has to run around a guard or engage him and disengage and shred and go, that ain't his game. We've always said there are 3 will linebackers trying to play 3 different positions. The goal is in this defense, you want to try to stay with 2 linebackers, but one of those guys has got to be all world. And perfect example, you look at Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner is amazing, but Bobby Wagner is able to be amazing in that phase because Bobby Wagner can stay clean.
Yep.
If I keep Leighton Vander Esch clean, he makes plays. If I keep Jalen Smith clean, they can make plays. I can't make plays because my 1 and my 3 technique, my A and B gap is porous.
Taking themselves out of plays, so they don't have to do anything. Yeah.
Right. So that's how I see it.
What position group do you think is most benefited by bringing in Dan Quinn?
The D lines, because he's a front 7 type guy.
Yeah. He's
a front 7 type guy. He always gets somebody else to work his back, his secondary. Raheem Morris or I think the Joe. What was the guy that was in was in Atlanta with him last time? Joe Mitt? They were looking at him as being the DC. Joe Witt. Joe Witt's a second. Yeah, Joe's a secondary guy. My problem is I was hoping that Lindquist and the secondary coaches that were there would get an opportunity to stay and continue to grow. But evidently, they're part of the, I guess, I think because the front seven was so bad and they couldn't stop the run, I think that kind of hurt the back portion.
Oh, for
But it
sure.
also,
Oh, absolutely.
For sure. Yeah.
So
That was one of the biggest issues when you're constantly in 2nd and 5. How do you line up to that? You always have the option to run or pass, so it just makes their job so much harder.
Yeah, but we kept seeing guys looking in the backfield far too often. So there goes to a point where they're not being taught at, where they missing their cues at. That's my problem with those guys. So they may be out of a job, but I was hoping that Lindquist and the other guy from
Al Harris.
Al Harris. I'm sorry, Al Harris would be retained, and hopefully they will, man. Maybe Witt decides to stay with Morris if he gets the job in Atlanta, and those guys get an opportunity to prove their worth, or kind of bring those guys along. Because let's be honest, they put Donovan Wilson on the field. Those guys put Donovan Wilson on the field. The last regime didn't, and we've come to find out you've got your starting strong safety in Donovan Wilson. So now you're just trying to piece other things together with the team.
Yeah, I think
100%.
as long as Quinn's communication and how he approaches the game, it sounds like he's a very no nonsense guy. As long as that's better, I think we're in good hands. And now he's trying to put the players that he can actually be able to utilize on the field. So got to start looking in that direction.
Yeah, I think the thing with Dan Quinn is that I can honestly say he may fall along the lines of Wade Phillips and guys like that. Be a terrible head coach, but an amazing DC. And that may just be his lane. That may be his lane. And if we can get that out of him 2 to 3 years, and then some of the guys that, we all love, the Sean Lees, get him to be there, kind of learn, understand it, see how they teach, and then maybe groom another guy that when he's ready to walk away, boom, you can slide him right in. He can be your hot shot guy. Because you don't want another situation like Eberflus to walk out the building because you got 2 guys who are already there. Because let's be honest, we probably would be ecstatic if Eberflus was our DC right now.
Man, that vacancy really hurt my soul because I thought that he was probably the most innovative defensive coach that we had. Ron Marinelli, he just wanted to coach D-line and be left alone, but he had too many skins on the wall to just go and be a position coach. Chris Rashard just yelled and taught guys to not look at the ball. So I really wanted to keep Eberflus on this team because I thought that.
With that, sorry to cut you off. Rashard was with Quinn up in Seattle, so he wasn't always teaching you not to look at the ball. He just didn't have the cornerbacks to be able to mirror and turn around. They just weren't very good. So they had plenty of interceptions with the Legion of Boom.
But does that draws the question of, was that a Rashard teaching or was that a Dan Quinn teaching?
I think it's more of just the talent. Having good quarterbacks allows you to get more interceptions.
Yeah. I think when your pass rush is a lot better and you can rush 4 and you can drop 7, I think all of that mirrors a lot of stuff that people can't do. Richard Sherman made a whole bunch of money not having to cover a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then having confidence in your safeties over top, know that they're doing your job. That is not to be understood.
That's right.
Richard Sherman, how many times did I have help over top, so I'm going to turn around and boom, interception right into his chest. Happened all the time.
Right, because he knew he could count on Cam and he could count on a young, healthy Earl. And that's the part that I think you have to go into free agency this year and go spend some money on some pieces. You got to go, take some of these draft picks and trade with somebody to get a young, energetic guy who can cover, who can go different areas. I don't want to walk into the season and say, hey, we got Reggie Robinson, who we transferred from a cornerback to a safety, and we're going to give him a go at being free safety and grooming his system. I don't have time for that. Let me go. Go ahead, Nick.
Easy, Chris. Easy. I don't like giving away my draft picks, man.
And you brought up his name because I've kind of trolled him a little bit, mainly just because of how much people want to see him play. Reggie Robinson moving back to a scheme that's a little bit more like the Rashard, Marinelli, does he make a better fit going back to corner now? I hate to have to move a young player again, but he's that big corner that those type of guys like. So he might be shuffling around again, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I hate that type of stuff.
Exactly. That was when I saw someone tweet that, I was like, I'd hate that, but it also kind of makes sense.
It does the player a disservice.
Definitely.
I feel like for a while, Byron Jones was stuck in that kind of purgatory.
Mm-hmm.
Where he was constantly being moved about and where he never truly got to develop. It wasn't until his 4th year that he was able to find his own.
Mm-hmm.
So
and that's a first-round talent you're doing that with too.
First round, right?
Imagine what was he? Robinson was 4th or 5th round?
5th,
No.
I believe.
5th? 5th, yeah. It was the 5th.
Yeah.
So now imagine a 5th rounder who's a little bit, less polished, trying to change positions twice in 2 years.
Absolutely. Playing in Tulsa, playing a little bit lesser value, or not a lesser tier of football, and trying to get him up to speed in the NFL. And he's not playing a snap this year. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So go ahead.
What are those guys that, Chris, like you mentioned, you can't complete everything through the draft as much as I like to. I'm a draft guy. I like that type of stuff. But you got to go out and get him some guys. What position group do you think that he is going to want bolstered by some veteran free agents?
For the money, okay. Here's the deal. I think I end up paying Rain $2 million this year on his new deal because it's going to be a 5-year deal.
Oh. $2 million?
Interesting.
I'm trying to pay him as little as possible, even though I know it's going to have to kick in. I have to pay as little as possible, or whatever the portion I need to pay, because I know I can spread it out. Because here's going to be the deal: I can pay. Let's say if I pay him $5 million this year. Let's say I pay him $8 million this year, right? I spread it because I know in year 3 the money's going to kick in from the TV deal. I'll be able to extend him because I'm going to extend him instead of getting into this mess again.
Yep.
So he'll end up getting his money. So if I'm going to do that, I'm telling you, I know how much y'all love y'all draft picks. I'm willing to give one of those compensatory fourths, go to Los Angeles, and I want Taylor Rapp. That's what I want. I want Taylor Rapp. In free agency, I'll look at trying to get the guy from New York, the D tackle from New York,
Tomlinson,
Leonard Williams.
Yeah, no. We ain't got Leonard Williams. Tomlinson.
Hey man, you said I'm swinging for the fences when you talk about that.
You swinging out of the whole stadium. But no, I'll get Tomlinson,
okay,
or Taylor Rapp. I need to be able to get a proven guy who knows how to play in the NFL out the gate.
Yeah.
Because I can bet because and we'll talk a little bit of draft. I'm really trying to get out of spot 10.
Of course.
I'm trying to get out of 10.
Of course, 100%. And I can explain it 3 ways that you could.
Well,
but hey,
explain on, my brother. Explain on.
Well, luckily, we have another video that we're going to record after this. So I don't want to spoil that too much, but just know that if one of those, and at this point, I'll say 5 because Mac Jones has played his way into a lot of people's hearts. If any one of those top 5 quarterbacks manage to fall to 10, there's going to be a cornucopia of offers at the table.
But even if you look at kind of how the draft might fall, even one of the receivers might be a target for somebody to trade up.
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
One of those guys,
okay,
or
100%.
Borderline on one of the tackles, another guy, Slater or Sewell, those could be trade up targets as well. So there's a lot of options to trade down in this draft, which is great for the Cowboys.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
So now we have one last vacancy left by Jim Tom Sula. So who would you possibly want to fill that?
I think we talked about it offline. I don't think most of us run around and find out who the great D-line coaches are on the earth and say, oh, let's bring that guy in, So,
And you might know where I'm going with this.
right. So man, I don't know if we want to stay in house. My question is, does George Edwards stay in house? Does George Edwards stay and become the D line coach? I mean, he's a great DC. Does he become the new D line coach and let him do it? And then continue to have Leon Lett as an assistant. But Leon Lett's been an assistant. Now he'll be an assistant under his third DC. And when will he become have the ability to just be a head, be a D line coach in itself? See, that goes back to my point about great players or really good players being able to transition from coaching and be able to teach it to someone else so they can do it as well.
I think that Leon Lett and Nick, you touched on this with my other guy that I'm gonna mention in a second. Leon Lett just might be happy with his lot in life right now. He doesn't seem to, and I say this because Jerry Jones, if a guy comes up to him and then gives him a hug and say, "Hey, I want this," and it's not going to break the bank for him, he'll generally do it. I think that Leon Lett just doesn't want that next step. That is the only reasonable answer to me, given the situation that he's been in for the past 3 seasons.
Okay. So who would you want, my friend?
So 2 days ago, right when the firing happened, we're recording this on Tuesday, by the way. A one certain DeMarcus Ware put up the little Batman meme where he's rubbing the chin, what's the word I'm looking for? Pensively, and just says defensive coordinator with a question mark. And that got me to thinking. The wheels got to turning. So obviously the Cowboys like to do that thing where they hire guys who have a bit of a legacy here, a career here, so to say, and fast track them into positions of authority. We saw with Kellen Moore, he started off as an assistant quarterbacks coach, offensive coordinator within the span of a few years. I am wondering if the situation with our D-line coach could be filled by DeMarcus Ware, and he would go through a similar journey on the opposite side of the ball.
Run with that one, Nick. I want you to run with that one first.
If he asked if he was serious about the position, I mean, I'd for sure let him interview. Definitely. I'm not going to hand him the job just because I loved him as a player. There's certain things that it takes to be a defensive line coach. I don't know what he brings. So it's tough. It's hard for me to really say that. And I think that's why we were both kind of, I guess, a little puzzled by the question as far as like who we would bring, because D-line coach is kind of like an oddball position to where you don't like see a guy on the other team like, oh, that's a great D-line coach. I wish we had him over here. It's just like we have great players, and I'm sure they're doing a lot of great stuff behind the scenes, but I don't really know. So it's kind of tough.
Right. The defensive coordinator in San Francisco, he's fiery and passionate, but I can be fiery and passionate with Bosa, and all those cats that they got running around over there. My problem goes back to this, is that coaching, we've never seen, and I was sharing with you before, we've never seen a great player, a Hall of Fame status type player, because DeMarcus Ware, for me, is a Hall of Fame player. Be transition from off the field and have the same amount of success in coaching. We were trying to run down the list of guys who've done that, and we haven't seen it. The only guy that came to mind was Mike Ditka, okay? Dan Reeves did it. He was a really good player, but he turned around to being a coach. So it's hard for those guys to go from that lifestyle. Now, he has the ability now, and Nick was sharing with us, and I've seen him before, he's got defensive pass rush or defensive lineman schools that he comes out and teach. So he'll get some guys to come to where he's at for a location, spend maybe 3-4 days with him, work on some techniques, work on things like that. They pay him a couple of dollars or they spend some time with him. And then he goes back to his life with his wife and his kids. Being a coach is a totally different mindset. That's 4 o'clock in the morning. That's 4 o'clock in the morning. That's learning different techniques. That's going to different camps to get better coaching techniques. That's learning how to teach better. And then he's got to go out and watch guys. He's got to say, okay, all right, Nick is rushing upfield, but his hand placement technique is off. So I got to teach him how to learn how to do that. Now, Chris has got a great first step. he's lazy on this part, and so now he's got to be able to deal with those personalities, get those and get his guys better, but then also be able to have his backups be to that point. And I don't know if he wants to go through that where he can just take elite guys, work with elite guys like him, because he can say this and they'll understand what he's saying because they got the same gifts and talents he has.
Yeah, he can make D-Law look good, but can he make the Bradley and Nyes? Can he make the Dorrance Armstrongs? Can he take them to the next level? The other thing I might add too is he spent the majority of his career in the 3-4. We're going to be running a lot of 4-3, and he played some 4-3. And he's a smart enough player, but can he teach it to where he's a little bit less familiar with that scheme in terms of what type of games they're going to be running? Is that something that would be even a great fit for him for his first coaching job? So
absolutely. Yeah, and the thing about it, let's be honest, DeMarcus Ware left here because they went to a 4-3. That's why he left here, because it beat him up. He beat him up. He got his last couple of years of his best years when he went out to Denver playing alongside somebody that was better than him. He was never a guy that had a sidekick that was at his level or better. When he went out with Von Miller, then he was able to just imagine that. Von Miller was better than him, so that he could take all the skill and talent he had and just go be a menace. He's on the opposite side getting 10 to 12 sacks, and that's like, oh, that's nothing. Because the other guy on the other side was at 16, 17.
Must be nice.
Oh, man, yeah. And he never had the opportunity to have the kind of D tackles they had, with a Malik Jackson, Derek Wolfe, guys like that on the inside. Ever.
Didn't they draft 2 first-round DNs while he was there too? Didn't they draft the kid from Missouri?
I think they went and got Chubb. I think they went and got Chubb.
Chubb was after he retired. I thought after Ware.
Okay. I thought it was like his last year, and he kind of groomed him, and then he kind of faded off because his back started getting. He was there on the roster, but he wasn't playing as much.
Maybe
because I think the one thing that DeMarcus Ware can teach anybody is how to be a pro, and I think that's now to be honest, if I'm gonna bring him in the building for anything, I want him to deal with the new 94 and help him be a pro. Now, if I can help him be a pro, then I can get the third coming of that 94 from Haley to Ware to Gregory. That's what I need.
Come on now, don't give me hope like that.
Hey, man, I'm just saying. 94 carry a lot of weight in that building.
It does. It definitely does. But I think as far as coaching changes go, that's all we got, man. It's going to be a lot of interesting things, whether it is, Quinn getting in the building, in the meeting, the conference call, and talking to these guys and figuring out their likes and dislikes, and eventually getting someone that likely he knows in as the line coach. So it's really going to be interesting. The offseason moves at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt. Listen, man, don't nobody need to be going nowhere. Ain't nobody deserve no offseason. If the NFL's still playing, they need to be showing up at the office, lifting weights and learning something different. Nobody deserve no time off. Not after that season.
That's right. That's right. And as a result, they have to have the pleasure of watching other teams in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
And hey, that's what it comes down to. But if you made it through this entire video without clicking the like button, shame on you. And you should already be subscribed. That helps us with the algorithm.
Right.
But hey, we got our man Nick here. Nick, please plug yourself, sir.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Nick_Herrera34.
That's right. And
Absolutely.
It's been me, Brandon, and of course my man 100 Grand.
Hey man, set it off, Chris, in the building, man. Come kick it with us, put something in the comment box. Say hey, shoot us a question, give us a comment. We'll definitely reply back, man. And we appreciate y'all. We're Frankly Football. Peace.